Mr. Matus.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you know, we're finalizing a general fund budget and the outside general fund budget. I figured we would start with the outside general fund budget first. I emailed the Commissioners on March 16th about the outside general fund, which includes JFS, narcotics, crime lab, et cetera, with that. You guys had about a week to digest that. With the outside general fund, it's a little less complicated than the general fund. What we look for is if it's in compliance with the Ohio Revised Code with that. And do you guys have any, I think this will be a lot less discussion on these funds than the inside general fund. Does the Commissioners have any questions concerning the outside general fund that I provided last week?
The only one that I would ask is, I believe it's going to be fund number 11900, non-departmental. Is that the one that soil and water is under?
Yeah, they have a specialty subsidy line item within the general fund, and that goes to 031, yes.
And my question becomes, I know there's a request for an additional 33,000, of which 10,000 is for AmeriCorps, a grant, and it's a dollar for dollar match. Do we want to discuss that now, or do we want to discuss that under inside general fund?
That's totally up to you. As Dan Donaldson wrote a letter, I put in the SIG file.
Okay.
I don't know what the status of that. I have not seen a signed copy of that.
Candidly, I'm trying to find that letter, so I don't know what happened to it. So I think Jennifer might be. Hey, Joel, could you ask Jennifer to take a look for soil and water? There's a letter from Dan Donaldson, reference about 33,000. Thank you. Okay, that was the only thing I just wanted to get into the discussion. We could either have it now or later, but the floor is up to you guys. It would appear to be reading whatever's there.
Yeah. It looks like it's reading my thing.
I was going to say, this is, ladies and gentlemen, technology is wonderful when it works, but this one's a hoot.
We can cut
Chat
that.
GPT is not a commissioner.
I think we're about to be replaced by artificial intelligence here. Please, no bad jokes in the audience. Easy there, Chris. I saw that smile come up.
Minimize or close? When I minimized it, it stopped. Yeah.
Well. Oh, yeah, it was definitely reading every single thing on the screen.
Looks like it stopped now since I just pulled
Okay.
it up.
So continue.
Just in regards to that, it was 250 million approximately in estimated revenues, and appropriations are 314. I know the common question every year is why does expenditures exceed revenues? And for the outside funds, a lot of this is the utility project funds that they're going to be working on throughout 2023. There still will be some minor adjustments that I'll outline to you guys. As you guys all know, with the three binders that I provided you upstairs, every line item that changed was highlighted in red. So you guys could look and see what it changed from the temporary appropriations. So we'll be finalizing that shortly. Like I said, I know Utilities has a couple resolutions on today. We have one for general fund, but that's already taken into consideration in the general fund. That's for the Microsoft Office 365 that you guys previously looked at and said that move forward and put it on the agenda for that. I thought it was going to be on today, but I believe the resolution for the Office 365 is going to be on next week. But the appropriations will be in place later today if or when you guys approve that resolution. So any other questions? Like I said, the outside fund, it's not nearly as, like I said, we look for the Ohio Revised Code to make sure we're in compliance with that as long as it's reasonable and so forth with that. Usually these are a lot easier to pass than the general funds. Any questions on any specific fund that the commissioners have for outside the general funds?
I'm good with it.
Mr. President,
Sir.
my one overarching question is, in your view, looking at the different budgets for narcotics at all, do they appear to be sustainable for the longer term?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so it sounds like we're substantially good to go on the outside general fund.
So for the general fund, I think the best thing to do is go department by department. I left the commissioners a packet at their desk that we finished up last night after hours. I know Auditor Galloway has requested his, and I will be sending that to him shortly after the meeting with that. So,
Oh, thank you. I believe this is it. This looks right.
yep. I need to turn this though.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second.
So we're looking at soil and water in particular.
There was a request for an
Yeah,
additional
right. Well, I thought,
33,000,
but,
and the notion
Oh.
there.
For the outside fund.
Yeah.
all right, here we go. Just in summary, before we get started, before we get into the
But there's
individual.
also, but
sorry.
on the soil and water, there's also an inside general fund component.
Yeah, the general fund actually transfers money over from non-departmental to that. What it is, soil and water is a unique department that is part funded by state and part funded by the county general fund. They receive a matching requirement that changes every year based on the legislation with soil and water regarding that. So if you have any other questions about soil and water, we can get into that when we get into that line item. So before we go into the individual departments, just so right now what we have is an estimated revenue of $70,232,060, and appropriations as they currently are $69,610,018.09. So right now, estimated revenues exceed proposed appropriations by $622,000. So what I thought we would do is go over each individual department, and then the commissioners can weigh in on if they would like to see any changes, anything that they would like to see different with that. So the first one, we're just going in chronological order, is the Commissioner's Office. If you look, as I previously stated, the line items in red have changed slightly. So what that means is on this one, I'll be able to go through most of them and just explain why the red have changed from what the temporary was. We had a change in dental coverage of one of our employees, so I had to add $50 from the proposed, and we had enough in our salary line item to transfer the $50 from the salary line item into the dental line item. So if you look overall, the budget, if you look last year, we spent $1.146 million. This year's proposed is 1.239. Basically, the changes are, and this will be for all, a majority of them is the salary line items for the elected officials, and also the hourly employees, as well as some insurance changes that we made throughout, that we were required to do based on our health insurance plans with that. Any questions specifically on the commissioner's budget?
Mr. President,
Sir.
so essentially the only changes in our budget relate to non-discretionary changes in health insurance.
Yep.
Salaries.
Yeah, and it was $50. That's what it was. It was, someone changed healthcare coverage, and it went, I believe, from employee child to employee spouse. So that's, I mean, when we do these temporary budgets, we based on the current healthcare coverage each employee has. Someone changed, that's gonna, you'll see that for various departments throughout.
For the record, I waived the healthcare coverage, so that is not my $50.
The second one is workforce development. If you look at that, the only change was we had a temporary budget of 0, and they have, we added $250 for the information technology service line item. That is for the chargebacks that the IT department does to the various departments. They did also increase the wages, which the data board approved before. And if you look at last year's, they spent $50. 250 is reasonable. What that is also imperative to know is JFS reimburses us for the workforce development. So in essence, I bumped up the revenue also by $250. Of course, as the commissioners know, and all the elected officials, this is a fluid document based on how the economy is going and so forth with that. With that, interest earnings are up, and we'll get to that after with their revenues. So we made some adjustments throughout for various departments with that. Any questions on the workforce development portion of the general fund? The next one is IT. This probably changed the most. I've been working with Mr. Falcone for a couple months, probably even more than that, Jason, with regards to Office 365. Mr. Falcone put together a letter and the board approved it. This is for migration for over to Office 365. Mr. Falcone thought this was very imperative for the county, and these also, the other line items pertaining to that changed based on he's going to have a consultant help him with that to speed up the process because it has to be done by the year. We had to make a slight change to their hospitalization and PERS amount. What that was, they had a person change coverage in the IT department, and they had enough in their PERS line item to supplement that, which I went over with Nick Falcone. So to change hospitalization and prescription. The other ones, like I said, the commissioners looked at the various line items, and Mr. Falcone provided letters previously, and the board adopted it in a public session via a resolution. So if you look at that, his budget will be lower at the end of the year, of course. If you look at it, it looks like it's went up over $600,000. In regards to that, Mr. Falcone does a great job. We try to recoup some money from other departments, and he does chargebacks. I've been working with him about the Office 365 to charge back some departments for, well, I shouldn't say charge back all departments for some. The general fund's going to have to pay that, a portion of that $400, but he will also receive some back from the various departments for chargebacks. So, like I said, this one's probably changed the most out of any department within the general fund. This in the sheriff's office with regards to that. And like I said, the commissioners have seen all of the changes except the minor ones for PERS, the hospitalization, and the prescription.
And by way of background, the Office 365, that's becoming necessary because the email server that we're currently on is at end of service life. There's no migration path from it. And in order to maintain the services that we're currently using, Office 365 was the only means of migrating from where we are to where we need to be.
Yep.
There will be some additional enhancements. Perhaps Auditor Galloway might want to add to that at some point, but or Nick's, I don't think Nick's with us. But that's kind of the high level. I'm getting a thumbs up. Thank you, sir.
And I believe that is, like I said, that I believe that one, the appropriations are on today. I thought the resolution was going to be on today. However, apparently it's been moved to next week. Any questions on IT?
Mr. President?
Sir.
If I could ask the budget director, one thing that I've definitely observed, and I think this is a broader discussion that will not begin nor end today, is that we have IT functions across multiple departments and under multiple elected officials, yet we have kind of the central IT and the auditor. You know, one concern that I have is whether or not we're duplicating work and services, and I think that we need to look at how we ultimately can have a central IT function. I know that that's not something that's going to happen in one fell swoop, but I'm concerned that we're not that big a county government that we need to have IT strewn everywhere, and if state law provides for IT to be in one centralized place, I think that's something we need to keep our mindset on.
In regards to that, we've been talking about that since I've been here in 2006, even when I worked for the Honorable Edward Zapancic with that. However, there is some, this is the pushback that we got from various things before, was they have specialized services within juvenile court, within the common pleas with that. I'm sure Mr. Galloway can address that with that. I know, and I'm not, Nick does not have a big staff, and they service a lot of outside entities as well. I would love to have one IT staff, but I think that's a goal for the future. Like you said, I don't think it's necessarily be able to done in a short time. Everyone is very protective, as you know, of their own systems and so forth. So I would love to see it. I don't know if that's a battle that Auditor Galloway would like to have, or myself including would like to have, to be honest with you. So I think that's a goal. I think that's probably, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the auditor. I'm sure it would be a lot easier, but that also, like I said, juvenile has their own case management. The judges definitely have theirs. That's why they have a staff of 2 right now with that. So, and like I said, there is some territorial issues with that, like they're in charge of their own system, so that. But I do think that's a great goal to have.
If I might add, President,
Sure.
you know, in the County Commissioners Association of Ohio, that's discussed quite frequently, and it echoes the comments and the feedback we hear across the state are similar to Mr. Matus, is that with all the other initiatives and platforms that exist in other departments, it quickly becomes an uphill battle. But I agree with Mike. It would be a great goal. It's just going to be a diligent process. So I concur. Thank you.
Well, here's my olive branch to our auditor. I'm going to suck up real quick. To Auditor Galloway's credit, our IT department works very well with the other IT folks. There's I want to say, collegial relationships that exist amongst the techie crowd, and they do back each other up. So there is value in that. But I do believe there is merit in the concerns relating to duplication of services. So I just wanted to get that into the conversation.
And just in moving forward with that, with the IT, a perfect example of that is also the Sheriff's Department, when they're having the CAD upgrade and so forth with that. They have specialized people in their IT that know that better than Mr. Falcone. Mr. Falcone does a great job. I've dealt with him when I worked in the auditor's office. I deal with him now. I think he does an outstanding job, in my opinion. But he can't be an expert in every system with that. Like I said, since Nick has taken over IT, sometimes I would hear, since I talk to other elected officials in other cities and so forth, that sometimes it was an uphill battle for IT, but I feel Nick Falcone and his staff has done an outstanding job, in my opinion, trying to be very open with communication with them, working with the various departments. Of course, as we all know, we have a lot of elected officials, and they have a lot of different opinions here at the county, and I think Nick has tried to address that as well as possible, and I think he's done a hell of a job, to be honest with you.
Thank you. I just think that as we continue to see great needs in the county, and we talk about how we need to prioritize our resources, we can't ignore areas of possible duplication of services. If our priorities are so dire and we must meet them, then we can't say, well, that's a sacred cow, we can't touch it, we can't look at it. And change happens slowly in government, that's certainly understood. But I think we have to have aspirational goals, and where there is one cross-cutting service that everyone uses, we need to be very careful we're not duplicating it.
Mr. President?
Sure.
Mr. Matus, do you have any idea how much of the difference on there after chargebacks will be taken out of the general fund?
Nick is going to be looking at that. It'll all initially be coming out of general fund.
Correct.
Nick is looking at that to make sure we don't want the sticker shock for the individual chargeback, because they do it a cost per PC with that. So I'll be working with Mr. Falcone throughout the year with that. What we're going to try to do, when I just have preliminary discussions with him, I'm sure it'll be up to the auditor's office for the final amount. But Nick and I have talked about a phased-in approach of the general fund paying for a portion and then getting lower and lower every year, basically with that. So the goal is to make it all be charged to individual users, and there's a lot of individual users within the general fund, so we're not going to recoup everything. However, I know Nick is diligently working on that. I don't know if Auditor Galloway wants to say anything else in regards to that or not. So
I think I might be able to help. One of the things that is preventing us from having an exact number is we are and are just now leaving a retain records order because of the opioid litigation. So there's an unknown number of accounts that are going to be unnecessary to maintain after this. So I'm going to let you take it away.
That process is actually underway. I'm glad you brought that up.
Nope, your microphone.
It's on the base of the.
Yes, please turn the microphone on. You were complimenting me. Re-compliment.
Sorry.
Good morning, sir.
You guys.
First time in chambers.
Yeah, well, listen. I'm not used to all this fancy high-tech television stuff. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That process is actually underway. Nick and his staff I know they've reached out to all the departments, all the electeds. That process is undergoing. It's actually almost done. I think we only have a couple more departments still to respond, and trying to narrow down the number of mailboxes, get rid of the ones that aren't being used, getting past the opioid hold, and that number has come down considerably. We're probably going to build in some extra, because there's going to be new employees at some point, new accounts that'll be needed. The other thing that's going to be looked at is there are a lot of email accounts that don't require, they're sort of like, dummy accounts. Like you guys have an account for like people want to employment at commissioners or what, so it doesn't need a full 365. So then once we have that figured out, then there'll be an analysis of what are the ones that we can just go to the simplified box, which is a much cheaper cost structure. So to your point, I believe the resolution is being prepared with an amount that's sort of like not to exceed, I think right now it's like around 5 something, but we're hoping that's in the high 4s when it's all said and done in terms of actual expense. So we don't have an exact number yet, but we're getting there. So you're right. The process, what's been talked about, and I know I've talked with Nick as well, is the thing that Mike outlined makes the most sense. There's no department that can handle the increase in the 365 cost this year and next, but perhaps then starting a phase down, I think is the only way to do it, and it makes the most sense. So I know we appreciate the commissioners. Commissioner Hammercheck was at the data board meeting, diving into this and understanding how mission critical this is. I know Geauga and Cuyahoga have already migrated to Office 365, and our runway on this is the end of the year. So we've got it's a mission critical thing. So, and on the IT element, I agree with Mike and would love to work with him on reducing and simplifying.
I'm not working with that. I'm not dealing with that headache.
All right, all right.
Sounds like it's up to you, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, okay, well, that's fine. That's fine.
When he gets started, he's going to pass too after a while. No, it's definitely a process that we should visit. It's just going to be. I was here when we first initiated the IT chargebacks. That was a definite speed bump. However, communication was the best thing with that, and we have definitely got past that, but I think that's going to be a uphill battle for the short term. Hopefully that's a long-term goal, like you said. Yeah. So. And like I said, Nick, I know through discussion with Nick, like I said, that number that he did, the 400 and some, plus in the consulting, like Otter Galloway said, over 500,000. Like Otter Galloway says, I know Nick's trying to do that. It may need a bump, depending on how many people are taken off for the emails. It may be lower. Nick's working through that right now. Like I said, I just talked to him Monday night about that, just to check the status of that. And he said a lot of departments, as you echoed, have already responded. I know ours, I know Jim Bell, I know Nick asked me a couple myself on Monday that people didn't know names on that were 7-year-old emails that probably were never, for some reason, are not deleted at the time. Sometimes they put a hold on it.
Dan Troy at LakeCountyOhio.gov.
I don't know that. I just know there was an intern that we had that was one of them, and there were some generic emails that were pointed out before. So, like I said, this is necessary evil of this. I know time is of the essence with that, and that's why I know Nick is shooting for the end of the year. So hopefully, like I said, with Nick and the staff and the help of some consulting, just they'll get this project completed before year end. I know Nick is very adamant. We talked to him about that before, Mr. Boyd and myself, with that, but that's going to affect every user here at the county, the Office 365, so.
And it's not just a negative. There are positives with it. We are going to get a bunch of extra things per account that we don't have now, like Teams and some other services that Microsoft provides part of it. So we're going to be paying more, but we are getting more than what we have now. So it's not a complete negative for us, and allow us actually to do some other things that we can't currently. So there are some positive elements to it.
Another positive element in talking with Mr. Falcone is some of the service stuff that he has currently, since they'll be upgrading Office 365, there's going to be a reduction in expenditures over the future of some certain programs that they currently have to pay for, that this will actually eliminate. So
Right.
in essence, Nick's still echoing, like you said, that's a great question what you asked, what the net effect is. Until Nick knows the total count of emails and so forth, we threw a dart at the wall, Nick did, about how many users that he has, and we'll see what it boils out to. So I know Nick will diligently work to try to control that cost.
Mr. President?
Sir.
While we have the auditor with us and we're introducing the idea of long-term goals, I still think it's important that we're looking at our budget globally, not just on a year-to-year basis, but on a future, 10, 20, 30-year basis. And I think that we need to seriously consider taking advantage of the performance audit function of the state auditor's office to make sure that we have an outside view as to whether or not we're missing certain duplicative services, or we're missing the opportunity to save money by making money. We've seen some departments like the clerk of courts generate a lot of excess revenue. There may be opportunities in other departments to either save money or increase revenues. And while we are the local experts in our budget, sometimes having that outside perspective is very valuable. And I think it's even more valuable when you have significant requests by a department where we have a need. We need another $400,000 for Office 365, or another $1 million for salary line items. At a certain point, I do think it's important for us to have that long-term strategic planning. And I'm curious to hear from the county auditor what you think of the performance audits that are provided for by the state.
I think that they can be very beneficial. I've seen in some local communities where it's done very well, and help them. I think it's important to probably look at those, to your point about the global element. It's not just the dollars and cents. I mean, ultimately it always does come down to that, but it's also sometimes the operational. You've talked about IT redundancy. Those types of things can also be looked at operationally. Are we using technology enough, or are we resisting it and therefore adding to our payroll? So I'm always in favor of those sort of critical looks at what we do. So I don't think that's ever a waste of an effort. And look, you can also come back and they say, well, most of what you're doing is really great, but maybe here's some suggestions. So, I'm generally a fan of those. I mean, there's no harm in ever looking at that. And I think when you talk about long-term strategic planning, it's another tool. You're not required to do anything that they recommend, but it certainly goes into that toolbox of, okay, if you're looking at long-term strategery for the county, then it's one way to do an analysis and kind of dive into that. So that's not a bad idea.
If I may comment for 1 second, as previously working with the state auditor's office, performance audits are only as good as the people that are willing to partake in the performance audit. Yeah. We have had one before. Maureen Kelly had one when she's clerk of courts. It all depends on the department that you're working with. If you are open to providing them the records, open to scrutiny, that is what happens. If they are not, it's a total, in my opinion, as being an audit manager in the past, working on audits, reviewing performance audits, it's only as good as the people are willing to partake in it. Just as we discussed before with the overall county payroll study, some departments have said they don't want to partake in that. The same thing goes for performance audits. In general, performance audits, if someone is very open to that, it's a great thing. If they are not, it's a total waste.
Well, from my perspective, we need to be open to that outside perspective and having that additional data point. And I would find it very unpersuasive if a department said, I refuse to participate, but I really need this. And I think if you want to make a claim that the taxpayers have to increase your funding dramatically, you should be open to that outside critique. Now, obviously, we haven't engaged in this process in this year's budgeting cycle. I'm not talking about any individual department now, but I would assume, given the strong leadership that we have in our departments, that there would be a great willingness to participate in an exercise like that so that we can all be more efficient in working together.
You would also think that with the payroll study as well, but there's been some pushback from that over the years with that. And that's one thing that I know I've talked to you each individually. If a person partakes, we want to do an overall payroll study for the entire county. But some departments have already said they do not want to partake in that. So I hope the commissioners take that in consideration regarding their budgets as well.
Well, I mean, to your point, if performance audit, if the board is enthusiastic about that, the biggest chunk of county operations falls under the board. I can tell you, speaking for my office, I would wholeheartedly embrace doing one. So if the board wanted to do one on your side of operations, I can tell you that the auditor's office would join in and participate in that 100%. So I think it's a good idea.
Well, I think Auditor Keith...
It's a thing I've had in the back of my mind, but obviously in my first few years here, I've had a lot of other things to work on, and but you know, it's not a bad idea.
I think Auditor Keith Faber has really provided leadership here, and we should take advantage of the service going forward.
Maybe a softer introduction. Back in the day, I think the last CAFR that was done was in 2008, and now I believe they call it an ACFR. They changed the name for some reason that is beyond me, but one of the things that we talk about is economic development, and those ACFR documents are actually looked at by companies and organizations that are looking to invest in a community.
I just got the breakdown from Moody's sending me a few weeks ago, wanting me to review what they were going to put out in the public on Lake County's bond rating. So
there you go.
And we're doing well.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And an ACFR would definitely, and I know you like to be an award-winning auditor's department. This would be maybe a nice soft kickoff to say, hey, we're gonna next year aim for that.
Well, it's something I looked at. Auditors of Pansick and Mike was probably around the last. Were you in 12? Were you in the auditor's office in 12?
I was actually, it was done before that. We changed to CAFR. Why we did that, we worked with the board at the current time.
Right.
And basically what it was you either continue with the CAFR or you lay a person off. So we worked with bond counsel, we worked with the underwriters, we worked with everyone possible to see if it was which way we should go with that. If it definitely had an effect on the bond rating, and CAFR, I'm still calling it that, was not instrumental with that. Now, in regards to bond rating, they look at your fund balances. If you use your fund balances and you drain your fund balances, I already had a meeting, Mr. Boyd and myself had a bond meeting about the note issuance for the engineer's office. They said if we deplete our payroll liability, budget stabilization, permanent improvement fund, that we would likely get downgraded with that. And with that being said, that would affect the long-term interest rates of that. There's GFOA has specific standards on what the general fund carryover is. It's anywhere from 20 to 40%. If you look at that, right now, if you add up the budget stabilization, payroll liability, and general fund, we're slightly over the 20%. However, that looks favorably upon that. I think Mr. Boyd was on the telephone with us. It was an hour. We had an expert analysis from St. Louis, and they said, we brought up the jail. That's the whole topic of the jail. And they said depleting those funds would definitely, likely, Mr. Boyd, correct? Decrease our bond rating, therefore the interest rate would be a little bit higher. We tried to take advantage of OMAP, which is a program from the state. We did utilize that for the engineer notes. With that, they actually use our bond rating, but it got bumped up one. We've tried numerous times when Commissioner Troy was here, Commissioner Sines, and Commissioner Awfuldish about trying to update our bond rating to the highest. We're the second highest now. However, we were going to go to St. Louis and try to do a presentation. They said, don't waste your time. What that meant was our financials were great. Everything is good. However, our tax base from our county, it's not big enough. We have zero chance, they said, to increase our bond rating. So we do utilize the Treasurer's office for OMAP. In regards to a bigger issue, we're looking, if we do proceed with bigger capital projects over the year, using OMAP with that, there does not appear to be a limit of that, but we're still working through that to see if we could use OMAP to get the upgraded. However, like I said, they made it known to me and Jason in our conference call that our fund balances are good. However, depleting them could definitely have a negative impact on interest rates as well as the bond rating.
So, he already went where I was going to go, which was at the time, the decision was made because of the budget cuts being done. Ed had made the decision that the 6 figures that it took to complete a CAFR was not worth it in terms of where we are in terms of bond rating. Actually, our bond rating is better now than it was in 2012. And as Mike points out, we're as high as we're going to get. So from us, in terms of spending the money on it, there's just no purpose at this time. And so, yeah, my analysis is the same as his, that it's something I looked at when I came in, and I was told, well, Ed got rid of it, and here's why Ed got rid of it. And so it was like, okay, well, that made sense at the time, and since we're already at the second highest bond level, there's nowhere to go. So there's no reason to go spend $100,000, $200,000 on putting it together. It'd just be a waste of money just to make us feel good. So, anything else for me for now?
For now.
For now.
For now.
All right. Back to the back of the room.
Thank you, Auditor. All right, so are we good on information technologies 11200? I'm going to say that's a yes and check that box off.
Buildings and grounds is the next one. There was just a minor adjustment that they had with hospitalization, and I took it from Medicare. Everything else, when I've been working with Mr. Eifelis with that over, since we sent it out last year. Mr. Eifelis does a great job with his building and grounds department, in my opinion. One thing that we'll have to look at maybe is a vehicle purchase, or I should say transfer from a different department. I'm working with Mr. Hackman on that. JFS wants to transfer it over. We're working to see, I know Mr. Hackman was going to talk to Mr. Colson about that. I think we have to give them the fair market value back with that, but that'll help B&G with the vehicle need that they have. For the most part, like I said, that remains unchanged. Like I said, the only line items that have changed are the red. So, very minimal. I have a formula on each one. On this one, it was very minuscule as well. Any questions on B&G? And if you look at Mark's budget, even in comparison to 2019, Mark looks at it every time there's someone that leaves, if a replacement is needed. If you look at his 19 numbers compared to the 2023 recommendation, it's still under what it was back in 2019.
And on that fair market value on the vehicle, we're talking wholesale, not retail.
Correct.
With this grossly inflated.
Yeah, what we'll do is, I know in the past I've worked with, what's his name? John Thrower with that, sorry John, in regards to that, and he always provided that. We did that last year with Faith Andrews when she got a couple vehicles to make sure that the department that purchased it,
Sure.
we don't want to get in trouble legally about, if JFS purchased it, that's federal, state, and local dollars. So we want to make sure it's significantly lower than the new purchase, like you said, and I'll work with Mr. Thrower on that for the fair market value once Mr. Colson and Mr. Hackman weigh in on that.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Sir.
Two things. First, when you say no change, I believe you mean no change from the temporary budget where we've already adjusted for a 2.5% increase
Correct.
for payroll, correct?
Yes.
And second, I want to repeat, echo, emphasize what you said. I think that Mark Eiffelise has done an incredible job in running his department. The fact that he's operating below 2019 expenses, but the level of service that he provides, particularly given the amount of work that he's had to do along with telecommunications in the jail, keeping that facility operating optimally, even though we all know it needs to be replaced as soon as possible. I think it's just exemplary what he's done.
Any other questions on building and grounds?
Moving on.
Next one is planning department. If you look, there's only one change, and we did increase it. He needed Mr. Radacci runs the planning department. This is planning department's funded through the general fund, CDBG, home, and ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The only change that Mr. Radacci is receiving right now is they do the public officials directory, and the cost with that advertising and printing went up a little bit, that he needs that upfront cost. And then so that only went up about $1,000 from the temporary, if you look. And if you look at his budget 2023 compared to 2022, it is actually lower than the actuals and barely higher than the 2019. What we try to utilize with that is he does basically keeps track of his time and how much he spends. He and his staff spend on home, CDBG, ERAP, etc., and they charge a portion of that to each federal grant, which is legally allowable. So I don't think you'll have too many questions on that, but if you do, please let me know. Dave does an outstanding job as well, in my opinion, with that. Dave's always open when I call him and ask him, because I am not a planner, unlike Mr. Boyd. So Dave has always been very helpful with that. And no major changes from 2022. Any questions regarding that?
Thank you, Mike. Next.
Next one is building department. If you look at that, the only change really is that. I know Dave sent out a wish list that we will revisit later in the year, depending on our revenues and so forth, about vehicle and some small equipment. The only change really was that is...
Did we skip over workforce development?
That was, we did that second. That was right 11012.
Just want to...
Yep, no problem.
So what is 11401?
That was workforce development before we actually, it was under planning, but we moved that to the general fund. If you look at the
Got it.
previous one, we actually, I rolled up the numbers, yep.
Okay, just want to be clear.
I do
Yep.
like the numbers on that one.
Those would be zero, yeah, those are great numbers.
Yeah.
The next department is building regulations. With that, the only change from the temporary budget is prescription needed to go up a couple dollars with that because of a change. I already had the change in effect for hospitalization. So if you can see, Medicare actually went down in comparison and prescription went up. So if you look at that, the budget's 1.181. If you look at that we have increase the staffing in that. If you look from 2019 to 2021, why we did that is we provide services to a lot of the communities out there now. That is why. We also have an agreement with Ashtabula County that I know some people have questioned in the past. That's actually a moneymaker for us. We have worked with Dave Hackman in the prosecutor's office in regards to that. I know Ashtabula is very fortunate that Dave has been helping them out. I know Ashtabula wants to get away from that, but I don't think they're there yet for building official like Dave. It's like a wastewater treatment plant operator. It's a very unique position, and there's not many people out there in regards to building officials such as Dave with all his certifications and so forth. We are fortunate enough, how many people are in our staff, Jason, are capable of at least one, right?
CBOs?
Yeah.
Yeah, one about to test.
About one to test, so we might be able to have two. That would be probably unheard of with that. Like I said, Dave does a great job. Of course, you're going to have some complaints all the time about turnaround and so forth, but that's common. I think Dave is definitely, since he took over the director role, cleaned up a lot of stuff, looked at our fee schedule, make sure it's fair, reasonable, make sure we're not losing money on commercial inspections and so forth with that. Like I said, everything that I've heard from Ashtabula, for the most part, that they're happy with Dave's services. So that's always good to hear about one of your department heads.
And just to be clear on the use of the phrase moneymaker, that's a reflection of the efficiency exceeding the cost of
Yep.
the operation, but that's also helping the operation be sustainable and
Yeah.
helping relieve the general fund. So you're using the term moneymaker in its most generic term.
Yep, in the most generic term, yes. It's
Just like-
we're not supposed to be making money. However, for us, we definitely want to be at least cost neutral. We did not we wanted to provide services to Lake County before another surrounding county. So we wanted to make sure it was at least cost neutral for that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I just want to observe that it takes a great deal of leadership in a department that other counties or city, village, township agencies would want to take advantage of the services that our building department provides. I think that there are few roles more hated than tax collector or building inspector. And nonetheless, what I hear time and time from our building and business community is that they like working with the Lake County Building Department. So I think that's a real credit to everyone there. Not only that, other agencies want to take advantage of our people by contract, which ultimately relieves expense to our taxpayers because it is better than revenue neutral for us. But that we're providing such a high level of service, our cities, our villages, our townships, and Ashtabula want to take advantage of that high level of service and expertise.
Thank you.
Any questions on, further questions on building department? The next one is our non-departmental. That is a lot of various different line items. That includes electric bills, utility, all other utility bills, transfers that are mandated, such as child support, children with disabilities. It's really called mental handicaps on that. They have not changed the term yet. With that, we're required, if it goes up to 1/10 of a mil, the direction in regards to this, that with the non-departmental, is I've heard the commissioners loud and clear that public safety is their #1 priority, and also economic development. Those are the two things that the commissioners have when we talked in general parameters about what they would like to see in the future. And that's therefore this line item, like I said, this affects that with transfers to the economic development fund and so forth with that. We are required, as I said, to pay a portion up to 1/10 of 1 mil, which is almost $750,000 for children with mental handicaps. We get a monthly billing from them, and that is very hard to project out. Right now we have $250,000 in there. Last year we spent $226,000. Year before that was $543,000. With that, that usually is the first indicator that when the recession hit last time, that number goes up. When there's less people that can afford the care, we get charged that. We're mandated to pay that. We also, like I said, this is where Soil and Water is. I'll scroll down to, so you guys can see that right there. It's $119,931. We have $210,000. That is comparable to what it was last year. The commissioners told me basically individually hold line with that. But I know Mr. Donaldson has reached out to me with that, and I know we did put together a letter. I don't know where what's the status of that is.
We have a copy. I don't see the one that was originally in the SIG file. I think they asked, though, that $33,000, and Mr.
Yep.
Donaldson has indicated that would give him stability for 3 years. And again, it's a dollar-for-dollar match with the state, and if he can get it booked now, it makes him eligible for that.
Correct. So that is one thing that the commissioners will have to advise. I know, I thought that was, I know I put him in SIG file myself. I don't know what the status of that is.
Well, you gotta stop using disappearing ink, Mike.
Sorry. So that also includes what our current debt service is. Our current debt service payment due this year is $1.247 million. As the commissioners know, we have a very, very low debt payments right now. Most of our debt that we have is special assessments that are self-supporting from assessments that are put on the tax duplicate. In regards to other non-departmental expenditures, if you look, we're required to pay the criminal prosecutions. That's very minimal if you look at $1,790. Then you have insurance and utilities. That's our course insurance. Then we have our electric, gas, telephone, other bills. I know we have some long-term capital project needs. This is one line item that we will not be able to reduce. I know there's been talks about reductions in budgets. However, we can never reduce. I've never seen gas and electric actually go down. It always usually goes up. Same with water, all the other utilities.
Mr. President? Sir. Real quick on the prosecutors, is that the Painesville Municipal Court?
That is there's two statutorily, it's two different people. Clamor and Lyons are the two. We're required by revised code to pay that. They get $760 combined each half year. I have been told that that is a revised code.
So what type of prosecutor are they? I just want to make sure I understand what their role is.
I think that's more of a prosecutor question. I don't know if Mr. Colson's, yes, he is here.
Prosecutors.
Municipal, so for all three municipal courts?
Yeah, that's correct. But I don't think all three courts, the prosecutors are charging. Just two are actually charging. What the state law says is, since municipal prosecutors have to do some state work, usually bindovers, felonies, that they can then get paid for some of that state work while they're in the municipal court.
So state work
Supplement their
bindovers.
salary they're getting from the municipality that's paying.
Okay.
The next one down is taxes. That's levies and assessments. Every time we do, like, for example, when this building was complete, we had to file for a tax exemption with that, which was granted. Anytime we do new construction, we're required to pay the taxes up front and then seek reimbursement from the Ohio Department of Taxation with that. Humane Society, there's a revised code. If they bring a court case up into that, we're required to pay that from the general fund. If you look, that's anywhere from $9,400 up until $13,700. So I put $15,000 in there. That's a best guess. That's ever changing as well. I get a monthly bill. I know I've talked to Mr. Hackman about that, and he's reviewed the revised code just to make sure. And as long as costs are reasonable, we're required to pay that. TB is also one, and I know in talking with the health district, that is one line item that definitely has changed. If you look, the original request was $525. They just put in a request a few weeks ago up to $4,600. That is for vaccines and treatment of
Chest X-rays typically.
Yeah, with that is something that they, in talking to them, that they see that is rising in regards to that. So it's not a cost breaker to the general fund. However, that is definitely one highlighted in red. As we go down with that, vital statistics, the apiary, Fair Board, Ohio State Extension, the state audit. We do have contingencies that we've always had in the budget. For example, if something comes up, such as IT has a server go down, B&G has a vehicle that blows up, sheriff needs something, that is where that comes
Mr.
from.
President?
Sir.
How often do B&G vehicles blow up?
More often than you would think. Then you have tax settlement deductions with that. That is off the semi-annual apportionment sheets for real estate taxes. That's all revised code driven. The medical contingencies is when we either have a drug test for employment or we have a person that gets in an accident and we have to send them for a medical test. We do recoup most of that. If it is non-general funds, we do charge individual department with that. If you look at that, the budget's 13.947 million. Any questions on that? A lot of that is not discretionary, like I said with that. There is some for transfers and so forth. We regularly look at the revenue projections throughout the year, as the commissioners know. I look at those on a daily basis, provide to ours office updated estimates, work with them in regards to that. So any questions on non-departmental besides the soil and water element with that? And we'll put that back in SIG file for your consideration. Next week, we'll be passing the appropriation. If you guys do have that in preliminary, review it, and you guys would like me to, I will add that into that.
Mr. President?
Sir.
Just to be clear, to make sure that I understand what's been discussed with respect to soil and water, we would essentially be advancing $30-some thousand with the understanding that it would be reimbursed by the state?
It would not be an advance. Basically, it would be a transfer to that, and they can use that as a matching, because every dollar that they get, they receive a dollar, and it fluctuates from year to year. Legislation, every 2 years it changes. So therefore, if we would provide them the $33,000, it would get approximately $33,000 back, if I believe.
Yes,
and
it's 66,000
yeah,
value.
and
So this would be matching funds. It would still be a net
Correct.
cost of $33,000 to the county.
to the general fund, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Any questions on non-departmental? All right, and the next one is ours office. We did have a budget hearing with the auditor's office. He explained some needs for furniture and some various other line items. We addressed a few of his line items with what he wants, the vehicle repairs, the contract services, and equipment that he wants for payroll protection with that. If you look at his budget, it's 827 compared to actuals of 795 last year. Do the commissioners have any questions or ask of me pertaining to the auditor's office?
Again, fluid document.
Yep.
If we need to make changes during the year, we can. If there's additional needs, we can.
Yep.
We're just, again, focusing on our justice system, emphasis on public safety.
Yep.
Okay. And with that, I bought you enough time to walk up here.
Apparently the auditor would like to speak.
Wait, turn his microphone off.
That's right.
Sign language.
You could have left it off and I would have never known how to turn it back on, so. So I apologize, I haven't seen this document yet. Can we,
Yeah, absolutely.
Now keep it rolling up and down, Mike.
yeah, let's
I just
let's
wanna
make
give
it harder on the blind auditor here.
As I said before, Mr. Galloway requested this at 3:15 yesterday. However, as Commissioner Hammercheck knows, I was here until approximately 6 o'clock,
Oh,
still
yeah,
tying
right,
stuff up.
right.
You'll be getting this after.
Okay. Can you give me the synopsis of the handful of accounts that we requested some changes to? Were those addressed, not addressed? What's
The ones that are highlighted in red were the ones addressed. Your other concerns were, we left the budget as what it was.
Okay, so
So
the
you
ones,
asked for a small bump up in vehicle repairs, you asked for a small bump up in contract services, and you asked for the equipment purchases, so.
okay. Well, then I would like to ask the board to amend this budget. Are you making amendments at this time? Are you making them on the fly before?
Well, I think we're gonna take notes and throw them in the SIG file, and
Yep.
I think this is the part where I say, no decisions will be made until after all budget meetings are completed. I got my note here, so now I
The
got
commissioners
it.
will act upon this formally next week, so I'll put together all the requests, such as the soil and water and so forth. I'll be taking notes, like I said, so.
And again, it's not,
It's a fluid document.
it's a flu, yeah. 'cause
No, I
we've
understand.
got-
I'm just trying to understand I just need to understand the process in terms of the approval process. So the budget director has made changes in 3 line items. I know I requested maybe there were 8. I'm just curious about the other, let's just call it 5 since I'm kind of doing this on the fly here. Okay, there were a total of 12, I apologize. So 3 have been addressed, and the others have not. How would you like to proceed on discussing the remaining 9, Mr. President?
Well, what do you got? I I guess we'll just start with, if you want to do a quick punch list on them?
Well, I mean, I don't want to go through the same thing we did previously. I am reiterating my request on the other line items. The first would be the $5,000 for the PC network and software, to be able to continue to do computer replacements when things are old. Additionally, I asked for some additional, let's see, did you address that? No. Information technology services, I asked for an additional $2,500. And additionally, I requested $1,500 for repairs. If you look in the 2022, we had that is a line item that every year is not. If you go back the 5 years into 2019, you'll note that online, and I'll just give you the line. It's 661636. We have some years where we have no expense, and then we have some years where there is, like for example, 2022 was $1,400. That was why I was requesting $1,500 in that line. Let's see, you did address the request for contract services, thank you. Minor equipment, I was requesting $250. We may have some minor potential expenses on weights and measures and things of that nature, so I'd like to have some dollars in that account should we need it. Additionally, you did address the vehicle repairs and supplies. That was mostly about gas. We have more, even though we've reduced our vehicle fleet, we do have more locations, gas stations, things of that nature. Prices are going up to go out and check with weights and measures. Some of the other line items that I had in there were adjustments based on salary, life insurance, Medicare, the PERS, and my request on salary was $391,000. If you look at 2021 to 2022, our general fund salaries were reduced, and then from 2022 to 2023, they are increased. What is that one? I can't see the percentage. I apologize.
About $5,000.
Okay, so what I had previously presented on the worksheet, I had presented at our previous meeting on this, that had my general fund budget been given the cost of living adjustments as previously outlined from 21 through 22 of 2 and 2.5, and then 2.5 for this year, we would have actually been at a budget of $391,000, and that's what I'm requesting, is to get to that number.
Can I also ask one question?
Sure.
You did add an additional payroll person, correct?
I did, yes.
So that actually, the number that I had reflective would have included the 2.5%.
So part of the problem is that when you pulled payroll from August, I have a full-time employee who, because of her personal situation, isn't always working 80 hours. Mm-hmm. So that has also led to an incorrect estimate on the numbers. In this budget, we've then made her a 64-hour employee, just because in that payroll she was a 64-hour employee. She's not a 64-hour employee. I allow her to do that from time to time because of her familial situation. So there are a number of
Staff count is up by 1, correct?
Staff count is up by 1, and I have at least 1 retirement coming in the next couple weeks. So staff count is always, as you know, up 1, down 1, 2. It's always fluctuating and changing.
Are you going to replace the one that is retiring?
I don't know yet. My goal is to not, and then I will see operationally how things go without that. I would like to not have to, but we'll see. Obviously, transfers are down. Some of those real estate elements are down, so I'm looking at it, and I'm not going to immediately put out and try to replace an employee. But if I have to.
Is the employee that you have from the real estate fund that's retiring?
She is. Now,
And that will have no effect on the general fund?
I understand 266 versus 120, Mr. Matus.
Thanks.
The difference is that the person that I have brought in anticipation of the retirement is going to be providing support across the enterprise. She's learning back up on payroll now. As you know, we only have 2 people that perform the payroll for the entire county. I don't find that acceptable, that we need to have additional redundancies built in. So the person I hired is also will be working on training on real estate elements and other elements across. We're doing cross-training on all of our hires at this point. Now, granted, not everybody's going to learn payroll, but so the purpose of the person is not to come in and just do payroll. That is where she's starting to train, but then she's going to learn other elements across the operation. So from that standpoint, I'm requesting $391,000. If I may approach the dais, I have some.
If I could just pause for just a second, just in an abundance of desire for clarity. From this side of the ledger sheet, we were looking at it as there was the percentage increase. The +1 employee did consume those dollars. So just to be clear, we did do the percentage. You added an employee. I'll slim it way down. But we're willing to keep an open mind, but we do have, again, an emphasis is going to be placed on our justice system, public safety, those things, so.
I have no issue with that whatsoever, that you place an emphasis there. What I would say is that you're not building a jail on the 1.5% that the auditor's office represents in terms of the general fund budget.
But I would like to retain prosecutors.
Absolutely.
Attorneys, sheriff's deputies, corrections officers. But that's, in fairness, I just want to.
100%. I don't find my request for an increase in $29,000 in general fund revenue to be excessive. I find it actually quite well within what has been happening historically. I'd like to use some data points.
Thank you, sir.
This is an analysis of departmental salary changes.
Thank you.
No.
Additionally,
Thanks for providing me a copy,
one
please.
of the things I will also be talking about is auditor fees and conveyance fees.
When I send you the copy.
I'll get you this as soon as I'm completed here.
Thanks.
You can literally have these 2 copies when I'm
I'll
done.
have it.
So, you'll note general fund changes, employee counts. On the first one I gave you, salary change by department over the last 10 years. On the lower one, you'll see the sum total of employees that are pulling some or all out of general fund per department. You will note that the auditor's office, in terms of employees over the last 10 years, is not changed much in terms of overall employees. Additionally, in the top chart, you'll note the change in increase from general fund on salaries over the last 10 years by the departments listed there. I think the auditor's office has been well within our general fund number, if I may continue. So I think my request is quite apropos. On the second one I gave you, our office collects the conveyance fees for the county as well as auditor fees. You will note our expenses as it relates to the general fund in yellow, the little yellow bars at the bottom. The green represents the auditor fees collected. We have never exceeded the amount that the auditor's fees are for, and per ORC 322.03, the auditor's fees are there to fund and operate the auditor's office. We do not spend more than we bring in auditor's fees, never have, and even with this modest budget increase, we still won't even come close. Conveyance fees, You'll see the total numbers of conveyance fees over the last 10 years, how much has been brought into the county that's gone to the general fund, i.e. the auditor's office is actually a profit center for the county. We are not spending more money than we are bringing in terms of the fees that we collect. So what I am asking for is a modest increase in the line items that I had previously requested, as well as the additional 29,000 or so in general fund salary, based on the fact that Ohio Revised Code does clearly state that the purpose of the auditor's fees is to fund the auditor's office. I don't think that my request is excessive or whatnot. Additionally, if I may, Mr. President, a couple of these will obviously not be appropriate in terms of the changes that Mr. Matus made to the budget, but I would, just for the purpose of simplification for the board,
Yes.
these are the specific lines that I'm asking for to be amended to the dollar amounts previously requested.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President?
Sir.
One question I have is on budget request for salaries, I see 376, yet the auditor said that he requested 391. I just want to make sure we're all reading from the same page book here. Why does it show a different number there in terms of the request line?
His original request was 376. That was back in May. Of course, that changes.
Yeah.
I have no problem with his change, like his request. It's just if the commissioners would like to fund that and so forth. Like I said, I've tried to, we have a finite amount of resources, and commissioners asked me to put an emphasis on public safety and economic
And
development.
if I could provide just a bit of perspective, and I appreciate the look back over time, but this also encapsulates, and I'm going to look to our sheriff, the sheriff's office, you show a tremendous increase as compared to the auditor's office. They took a tremendous hit. I believe they lost 30 deputies back in the day when the budget issues hit, and I believe it was 2008. So in fairness, as we've been working on building back our sheriff's department and their capacity to provide safety in the county, that is critical. If I could just offer up the commissioner's office, our level of staffing has dropped dramatically, and we have made a few adjustments on that. So if you do see an increase in the commissioner's office, back in the day, the auditor's office did not get hit as hard as other departments. I just want to make sure that, you know, we're looking at this in context. I appreciate your perspective, and I would.
Well, I would say that the commissioner's office in 2013 had 17 and a half approximate employees pulling out of general fund, and today they have 18 and a half. So in that 10 years, there's been an increase of, in essence, one within the commissioner's office. In the auditor's office, as is outlined, you know, for general fund, we've been hovering right around 10 employees. Additionally, just similar to the commissioner's office. The purpose of the chart is not to, I mean, the sheriff will speak to his particular. I'm trying to give other departmental understanding of looking at general fund. If you look at treasurer, commissioners, prosecutor, sheriff, auditor, the argument cannot be made that the auditor's office has been somehow excessive in terms of its budgeting or asking for funds. And so I wanted to dispel that notion.
And I likewise just want to be abundantly clear that other departments are recovering because of the hit.
Oh, I understand full well. I was a township trustee when the previous Board of Commissioners slashed the sheriff's budget and slashed staffing and eliminated road patrols. And that was, you know, and I had to deal with that as a township trustee and put a levy on, a safety levy, and go out and find a way to fund sheriff's patrols within my community. So I'm well aware of that. This is not a graph to show that the auditor's office is somehow better than some other particular thing. It's showing that over a 10-year period, we have been extremely conservative and extremely, you know, we've done what I believe the public would expect us to do. So what I'm asking for, I think, is a reasonable small amount. I know your focus is on public safety. I know that's where you're going to be looking at some very large increases. I know that my request in total of somewhere around additional over what was done is somewhere around $60,000 in total. Yes, $15,000 of that is for a one-time expense for furniture. $29,000 of that is additional on salaries, and the rest is just due to general costs and things. So I find my request very reasonable, and I would ask that the board take into consideration my request as it relates to my operations, and not sort of be tied to a desire to fund other areas which I know need to be done. I think we should be looked at on our own. I think we've put together a very reasonable budget with nothing excessive, so I don't expect to be sort of punished because the sheriff needs extra dollars. Revenue-wise, the county is fine. Last year, I know you're certifying revenue for this year at $70 million by being very conservative, but the fact is revenue in 2022 was $81 million. And in 2021, it was $75 million. So asking for $60,000 roughly, I don't find to be terribly excessive for a department that has been holding the line over the last 10 years budgetarily. So I'll get off my soapbox. I know you gentlemen have many more departments to do. Do you have any other questions of me?
No, I think you've made a very good case. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good. Thank you, Eric.
Just so we know, it is 9:26, and we have a
Yeah.
lot of departments still to go, just so
Just
everyone.
keep going, brother.
Thank you,
We'll see
Auditor
where this
Galloway.
takes us.
You're welcome. Next one is the treasurer's office. With regards to that, very minimal changes with that as well. They had some contract services that went up $40 whopping dollars. Minor equipment, they had a flood, and a printer needed to be replaced, so that's where it went from 200 to 2,000. They had a change in hospitalization, so we actually took some from PERS, Medicare, and also they did have a slight change in just the payroll line item as well. So if you look at that, they have 569,000. The request last year it was 518. Any questions on the treasurer's office?
We're good.
Recorder office, I know Ms. Lynch is, we've talked about this numerous times. Basically, the budget that is in place is with the same percentages of employees paid from the general fund versus recorder equipment fund. She'd made a slight change last year. That's therefore the commissioners approved that last year, and that has continued on. 446 and the microfilming is what it is. With that, I monitor that on a monthly basis. With that, me and Director Lynch have a very open conversation on various line items within their budget. But the microfilm, that may be enough, it may not. It all depends on how many departments send her microfilming. So I believe Ms. Lynch wants to talk now as well, since she's at the podium. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, gentlemen. Becky Lynch, you're a recorder since 2017. I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Matus. I think that this county has the best financial director in the state, and I can count on him for all of my questions being answered, and throughout my tenure here as a recorder, he has always been accommodating to me, so I appreciate it. He's tough, but we get along well, and I appreciate all the work that Mike does.
I always say no. Some people act like they say no. I always say no. So,
Well, at least you're consistent.
yep, I'm very consistent.
I'd like to say, first off, that everyone knows the condition of the real estate. We are the recorder office. We filed the recordings for the deeds and mortgages, etc. Home sales are down at a 11-year low. Our activity is down 46% for the first 2 months of 2023. So just like to say, although all of this economic environment is dicey, the condition of the recorder's office, land records department in recordings is current, and historic records are in secure location. thankfully to the commissioners for moving our books from the back archives into these wonderful, where a tax map and GIS used to be. I'm getting compliments like crazy about the new locations of the books. Lighting is better, research is more doable, title people are happy, real estate people are happy. Anyone coming in there to do historics on their homes are happy. So the public is happy about their public space. Secondly, our recorder department revenues in 7 years have exceeded expenses. So we have a good track record going and staying within budget on our expenses. Very proud of that. Our cash balance was high when I came in, and I felt that the general fund, being a team player for the county, general fund is the people's money. Each of our departments have the monies that we manage, and the general fund itself has the priority because it is the general services of the county. We have, our cash balance has been drawn down in order to contribute it to the general fund. And over the last, since 2013, I'd like to say that in 1.6 million in allocations in our tech fund, our department has given back to the general fund $1.3 million. That's pretty significant. At a 1.6 since 2013, we have given back to the general fund 1.3. So I think that's a pretty good team player. And in conclusion, I'd like to say for 2023, we're good. As long as Mr. Matus and you gentlemen are good with our budget, we will work as hard as we can. Hopefully, home sales will go up. Likely they will in the spring and summer and when people move to come go in and out of schools. But I think the pendulum is going to be swinging back to a positive situation for the real estate market. So with that, if you have any questions for the 2023 budget, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think we're good. Mike, we good?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I would just share that if you haven't had the opportunity to tour the new library of the recorder, it's definitely worth the time. And I would say this to you, I'd say this to residents. It's really something when you get to see the first deed in county history, you get to see the first mortgages recorded. I don't think our recorder still uses a quill pen to record all of our deeds, but they used to. And the new facility has preserved these records for the future in a very special way that's accessible to the public. It's definitely worth coming down and seeing.
Thank you very much. You did come and see me. Hopefully, we can let the public know where their historic land records are. It's a good place, very good place.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And Mike, this was the upgrades, also a general fund expense?
There was a general fund expense for the racks and the upgrade that Telcom did as well as B&G, which I know Ms. Lynch was very appreciative of Mr. Stefanko and his crew, as well as Mr. Eifelis. I know Ms. Lynch has expressed that numerous times.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, Mike.
The next one, any more questions with the recorder? The next one is the prosecutor's office. Like I said, he had a budget hearing as well. The original temporary appropriation equated to $2.8 million. After talking with the commissioners about public safety, the updated interest earnings, we added another $100,000. So in essence, in summing up, Prosecutor Colson came up in last year in the mid and asked for $650,000 with his needs of losing people and so forth. Commissioner Tyler at the time, myself had numerous conversations with Mr. Colson. What we did, at the end of last year, we actually, Mr. Colson updated some employees being paid from DTAC. It equated to approximately $200,000 if you expand it over the course of an entire year. So when Mr. Colson and I talked, we were going to do $100,000 from general fund and $100,000 from DTAC. After hearing that, moving forward, we added another $100,000 to that salary line item to address some of his needs, up to the $2.9 million. So in essence, that has addressed $300,000 of Mr. Colson's previous ask. Of course, with that salary line item being changed, that also changed the PERS and the Medicare line item as well. And we had a slight change in hospitalization as well with that. As previously stated, our revenues exceed our estimates by $600,000, approximately $622,000. So this is one of the areas that I know the commissioners will advise me at a later time once Mr. Colson, apparently he's going to talk as well. I'm going to say this every time. In regards to that, I know he had a budget request and it was $950,000 if I recall correctly. And we have addressed 300 of it, but we also have estimated revenues exceed appropriations by $600,000. And based on the prior discussion with each commissioner, it's either public safety or economic development. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Colson.
I would like to, if I may, thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Just elaborate a little bit more on the history that Mike just gave, because two of the commissioners weren't here when some of this happened, and most of the negotiations were with Commissioner Tyler. When we, last year, when we started noticing that we couldn't hire prosecutors and that our neighboring county, Cuyahoga County, was starting to pay much higher salaries, we were facing a walkout. Walkout's not the right term. We were facing a large number of our very experienced prosecutors ready to leave and go to Cuyahoga County. And they talked to me about it. Some of them were actually hired by Cuyahoga County. So we talked to the commissioners and we started negotiations, and that temporary $200,000 that was for the last 9 pay periods, I was able to give sufficient raises to hold them. But we said we would negotiate, and we negotiated, Mr. Matus and Commissioner Tyler and I, and we negotiated for some time. But when we finally settled on that additional monies, we also said that next year, this year now, 2023, we would have to reopen this and look at it, because I'm not going to be able to keep the people I have. I'm not going to be able to continue to hire quality people with the funds that are being budgeted now. And we were supposed to discuss it. When I had the budget hearing last month, whenever it was, I went through and I told you what I think what we're going to need in order to be able to hire the necessary staff that we need. We're still short. We need more people. We don't have the depth we need. And to retain them, we're going to need to have a program that's going to be able to, where they can see that they can make a career out of the prosecutor's office, and we can keep these good people. It's important. Right at the moment, they're watching. When I say they, my employees, my prosecutors, they're watching. They're very interested in this, and so what we really need to do is, when I asked you, my additional staffing request is with the, what I'm really asking for at this point is an additional $353,000. I'm going to round it off, $354,000. And what that would do is that would give us a program. Now, all of that wouldn't be spent right away. Now, and I got to make another caveat. When I'm talking about salaries, I'm not including the benefits. We all know that that's going to add more to it. So I haven't, just to make the discussion simpler, but Mr. Matus knows it. I'm talking about additional money.
Yep. Yes, sir.
That wouldn't be spent all at once. Obviously, it wouldn't be, but it would give us, starting in a career prosecutor program, where I could make sure that we can keep people, continue to hire the best people possible, the best and the brightest. That's what we want. That we can train them properly, that we have the sufficient staff to train and to do our function. Right now, we are struggling very hard. The civil division is on tilt. They are struggling to the point where I don't know how they get as much done as they do. The criminal division is also struggling, very much so. Because we have no depth, when people go out, like I have one just returned this week, but I have 3 more ready to go out on maternity leave or paternity leave. And when you take those people out, we just don't have enough people to assign cases to. And even when they come back, we're still don't have the sufficient staff we need for the proper training and proper handling of cases. I have been trying to figure out how are we going to handle all of these cases without keeping our good staff, without being able to hire additional staff. And there is no way we can do that without there being a decrease in the quality of the prosecution of the criminal cases in Lake County. Right now, we have very high standards. We are very tough. We don't give away cases. I could give you examples all the time about other counties where they're giving away cases because it's easy. We don't take an easy route in Lake County. We prepare cases, we work on them, we're ready to go to trial, and that takes time and that takes talent. And we have the talent. We don't have the talent. We don't have enough talent, but the talent we have right now can do it. We need more talent, and we need the people so they have the time to do it. These complicated cases sometimes take more than one prosecutor. They take multiple prosecutors, and when you add that into the mix. So what I really need is an additional staffing in salaries in the general fund for the assistant prosecutors of $554,000. That and I will be I will work with Mr. Matus. We're not going to come and I'm not going to immediately take that money and spend it. We're going to hire the best people we can. We're going to be able to advertise at a higher starting salary so I can get better applicants and more applicants. And then to start the career prosecutor, we won't spend it all at once. We're going to say, a little bit here, and as they progress, as a prosecutor takes on more complicated cases, moves from juvenile to felony, moves from felony to become a mentor prosecutor. As they do that, then we will give them additional funds. So it won't be like we're taking all that money at once, and it won't come out. What I'm saying is, to the end of the year, it won't come out to be, because it's going to be prorated, it won't come out to be that full amount. But I need to know it's there so that I can make the promise to these people and start doing it and say, look, here's what's going to happen. When you move to felony now, you're going to get this. When you start taking on more complicated cases, when we can start giving you murder cases and we can start giving you rape cases, then we know that that's not only an extra work burden.
Sir.
I'm sorry?
You're off mic, sir. Sorry.
Sorry about that. That's not only just an additional harder work burden, it's more of an emotional burden. These are emotional things that we're going through when we're dealing with cases. These are tough for some of the people, for all of us, when we deal with some of the cases we're dealing with. So that's what I really am really recommended and asking you to approve an additional, over the 2.9 that you've done, an additional $354,000 for additional staffing. With that, I am convinced I can be competitive in getting the best law students coming out of law school, getting the best prosecutors. With that, I'm going to be able to keep the really good staff we have now. And I've mentioned this before. The staff I have now, I'm lucky because I've been here for a long time, but as an aggregate, and I have had a lot of terrific prosecutors come and go, but as an aggregate, when I look at my staff now, I have the best staff, quality-wise, in work ethic-wise, in willing to sacrifice and because it is a sacrifice. They give up. They're not working 8 to 4:30. They don't come here in the morning and then leave at night. They're taking files home at night. They're working on weekends. They're thinking about it all the time. This is a tough job. It's very tough. And so I think I can keep the people, and I think I can keep them motivated, and I can think that we can keep Lake County safer. Because if I can't do that, if I can't get the best prosecutors, and I can't get the prosecutors willing to take that extra time and effort and to be invested in this county, then what happens is we have to find a way to reduce the workload so that we can get the major cases done, and then you start giving away the lower cases. But that's bad for law enforcement. You know, criminals don't usually start at the top; they start at the bottom, and we need to be aggressive on that. So that's what I'm asking for. I also, in my budget hearing, asked for additional money to help reduce the reliance on the crime lab fund. That was another. I'm going to round it off to 100,000, just to make it easier to talk about, because I'm worried about over-reliance, spending. In the crime lab, Mike will have the exact figures. I'm going to use my figures off the top of my head, and if I'm wrong, Mike, please correct me. But the total salaries for all of the people working at the crime lab is approximately $800,000 a year. Again, we're just talking salaries, we're not talking benefits. Approximately $800,000. We're spending $500,000, $500,000 a year in the prosecutor's office of crime lab money. And I'm uncomfortable with that being fair to the voters who voted for that levy to operate and fund the crime lab, which is probably the most important crime fighting tool we have in Lake County. We keep getting calls from other counties wanting to use our laboratory because BCI, quite frankly, now is broken. You can't get things done in any timely manner. And so what we have here is a gem, and we need to keep it. We need to keep it strong for many years to come. And the only way to do that is to not deplete funds that shouldn't really be depleted from it to pay for prosecutors' office salaries. Some of it's legitimate. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying we have to focus on preserving the crime lab. And this levy won't last forever. My guess is we've got a good 15 years, and we've used up, 2-3 of that already. And then we're going to not have the money to operate the crime lab. So I would like to make that additional request. Obviously, if I had to take priorities, my first priority is for the additional $354,000. That clearly, I understand that. Also, and I've told you before, and I don't want to repeat myself too much, but the workload is just increasing dramatically because of the nature of the crimes, because of the nature of what it takes to prosecute a criminal case now properly. So this is what's needed. Lake County has always been very supportive of law enforcement, always. Lake County expects good law enforcement. Lake County expects good prosecution, and we've been giving it to them. But in order to continue to do that, I'm telling you, this is what we're going to need in order to continue that. Otherwise, we start the long, slow road down to where I am worried about Lake County. The amount of violence is increasing. The amount of serious crimes is increasing. The amount of major drug, I mean, we have Mexican cartels actively dealing here in Lake County now. We need to fight this, and we need to fight it now before it's too late, before we start turning, and I hate to use Euclid, but 20 years ago, Euclid was a beautiful place. One police chief told me, who's on the border of Euclid, just said, he's calling it a ghetto now. We don't want that to happen to Lake County. So I'm sounding the warning. I know what's involved here. I've been doing this for a long time, so I can see what's happening. I see it. So that's all I have to say, but I answer any questions.
So while we have you there, I just want to make sure that we have the running count. So in reference to exhibits A, B, and C of your previous review of the 2023 salary appropriations, you're looking to go down approximately from 454,000 to 354,000. I'm assuming you're going to use some internal funds to make up that difference.
That's correct.
And in fairness to
Well,
you,
I got the extra 100 from,
Yeah.
okay.
That was, like I said, I heard you guys with the public safety and we'll address it
Right,
next.
but, okay, so I'll hold that check, because the math works if I think you're putting some money into it. Exhibit D, as it indicates, this was monies that was approved, but the people were never hired because you just weren't competitive, but we're still working to bake that in. So again, just for this discussion, we're talking $348,600. And if we could get you to just bend at least another year on Exhibit E, just give us that to work with. It sounds like you're asking for $703,000 plus benefits out the door. You will be able to keep your people, you will be able to make the adjustments you need, you will be able to go forward if you can have those dollars as indicated on your previous document and based on the discussion of today.
that's correct. And that is adding the extra secretary, legal secretary, the extra, the new civil prosecutor, which you've already approved. But I haven't had
We haven't baked that into the numbers.
Yeah, when I get to the, but to answer your question, you're correct.
So the
But it adds
answer
all of that.
Would be
Yes.
703,000 plus benefits, approximate. Mike will get the exact numbers and work that out.
Yes, yes,
But that's your ask.
yes.
And any questions, gentlemen, if that's what
Mr.
we're talking
President?
about? Sir?
I would just say I'm grateful to the county prosecutor for taking the time to meet with me and explain his needs. We're going to be working closely with Mike Matus to try to address those priorities. And we hear you loud and clear when you say that the most important thing on your list is the salary adjustments for your people now. We're going to go as far down the list as we can, but I'm grateful that we know the priority.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just in closing with Mr. Colson, it really is a pleasure to work with Mr. Hackman and Ms. Eccles in your civil division. They're really outstanding to deal with on an everyday basis.
They are, and they are amazing people. But thank you, and I'll pass that on to them.
You know what, don't pass it on to Dave, never mind.
Goodness gracious. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Just a quick announcement. We are coming up close on the 10 o'clock hour. If there's no objections, we will continue this budget discussion into our regularly scheduled meeting. Shouldn't take much longer, but I think we're...
Well, it all depends.
Jason, you got some thoughts you want to add?
I can't speak to the link, just I know that our IT department we'll need about a 5 to 10 minute window to reset the
Understood.
feed.
That'll give us time to take care of necessities as well.
So
Why don't we do one more then, the sheriff's office? Or do you want to take a break now?
No, keep going. Just keep going, because I think we're making good progress, so keep going. So sheriffs,
Next one would be 12501, the sheriff, and he has numerous divisions within that. Before we start, that is the most challenging one right now for the county. I've met with Sheriff Leon Bruno and Chief Izzo numerous times, along with Mr. Boyd and Mr. DeMar. They have 8 union negotiations going on currently with that. And the major change in that, with the temporary budget, we actually knew that upon wage negotiations, that in comparison to other agencies throughout Lake County and other police agencies, they are relatively lower paid than that. So the original budget added $250,000 more than what it was. And then after review of the updated estimated revenues, we did add in additional $500,000. So if you look at comparison, it's approximately $1 million higher than what 2022 was. I caution everyone, when you look at 2020, that amount is significantly lower because we charge CARES Act funds for that. That is how we did fund some of the savings that we have for the public safety facility with that. So With the additional 500,000 added, we had to update PERS as well as Medicare with that. I worked closely with Sheriff Leon Bruno and his staff, Ian Raschuti, as well as his other staff members, Chief Izzo with that. I think overall, besides the salary line item, the sheriff feels that this is adequate for his needs. However, I'll turn it over to the sheriff now for his, if he would like to discuss his first portion of his general fund budget, which includes correction officers and his admin staff. So, Sheriff Leon Bruno.
Went over things in detail at our budget meeting, so I'm not going to rehash those to you. If you have any questions regarding the current budget or our concerns, I'd be happy to answer those.
I would say you've made it abundantly clear. We're looking at retaining people and recruiting people and basically keeping Lake County safe. I think that sums it up. Gentlemen, anything you want to add?
Mr. President, I would just say we're grateful to Chief Izzo for his hard work in the negotiations, and that's going to be a big part of this budget. We're obviously guessing what that number is going to be here, but we'll know for sure when those negotiations conclude. We know you're working hard to be fair to our men and women in uniform while staying within budgetary possibilities, so we're grateful to you for that hard work. And I just want to reiterate our commitment to you and your support and our commitment to building the new public safety center. That's going to be the next major budgetary task after we finish this permanent budget.
Thank you, sir.
I totally agree, and I'm hoping that the negotiations go well. And I believe that we're hopefully coming near the end or getting close to some agreements.
Yeah, just some further information that we just found out this week. Currently, Cleveland PD is down approximately 300 police officers, and they have 15 people in their academy.
So that's why it's so vital that we make market adjustments and we work to retain what we've got and recruit quality people.
Yeah, I've never seen it in this market. We just had, we lost one recruit who's in an academy who was going to join us, but another police department paid his, the $6,000 for his academy, and that made him make the change. Used to be you hope to get hired out of an academy. Now everybody's hiring people in their academies because they know once they get out, there's nobody coming. So just some further information on that.
It's never been a harder job than it is now. And this is nationwide, as we've been saying for a long time. So my hat's off to all your staff that are here.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Matus, anything further on the sheriff?
No, it's been Chief Izzo and Sheriff Leon Bruno have definitely kept an open line of communication. Also, I understand you guys brought up the public safety facility. Just want to touch on that real quick. That's not the only capital need. We know the EOC roof can go at any time. That's why we have a permanent improvement plan. That's part of the outside general funds. I worry about people recommending depleting that entirely or something, because once that money is gone, that money is gone. Hopefully we can restock it. Hopefully we have a great year.
Sure.
Conveyance fees is, recorder fees, as Ms. Lynch noted, are down. Conveyance fees are down. Who knows how long that's going to be? I know we had a nice bump up in the interest earnings. However, who knows how long that's going to last? When we looked at the last note for the engineer's office, we were at coupons rates of 1% in prior. It was 4% this time, with the yield over 3.45. So my vision for the county, and I know the commissioners are the decision maker, is I want to propose a budget to you that is long-term sustainability. I would not be doing my job if it was not sustainable. Giving the prosecutors $700,000 and next year having to lay people off. I know people try to prognosticate as much as they can. However, no one really knows what the economy is going to do. I mean, the interest earnings are definitely higher than what we expected, and we made that relative change. Like I said, conveyance fees, and like I said, recorder fees are definitely lower. So just take that. Not only do we have a public safety facility, we're building a range. We also have the EOC with the roof. We have tuck pointing on other buildings. I just emailed you guys yesterday on payroll liability line item that a person's paid from a grant, that now the grant funds do not cover that, so that will be a general fund expenditure. I got a request from, which was great, the engineer's office, Ms. Giblock, who used to work in finance, told me of an upcoming employee payout that is going to come from tax map. That's approximately $50,000. So B&G has had a couple people leave. Clerk Andrews has had a couple people leave. So just keep that in mind upon the entire budget with that. Next one is any questions more on the sheriff, just general admin, correction officers. It's 10 o'clock now.
Please continue, sir.
All right. Next one is central.
And before I say that, though, those who may be joining us at this time, the commissioners' meeting will begin following the reset of this budget discussion. We are in budget discussion, so.
And the video will terminate and then go live for the commissioners' meeting.
Yes.
The next one is central communications.
Hold on, you skipped over corner, or you? Okay.
No, corner's 126, so
I'm
we
sorry,
still got a
I'm
couple
sorry.
more parts with the
With the
sheriff.
sheriff, I just wanted
Yep.
to be sure. Okay, because I want to make sure the corner gets his due.
Absolutely. Next one is central communications. I figured after the sheriff, maybe we can take a break and term that because it's after 10, or
No,
do we?
keep
Oh,
going.
we can. We're just going to
Keep
continue. Okay,
going.
that's fine. If you look at that, basically that is in negotiations as well. I work with Chief Izzo and Sheriff Leon Bruno with that. They feel that the wages for that are within reason. There may be some adjustment with that. If you look at, there is life insurance. I'm going to have to make an adjustment right now because I see that was changed. That's going to be about $1,200, and it's going to come from the hospitalization. So I see that was just omitted by error. So that's going to be about $1,200. I feel when talking to sheriff and that there may be some training needs that Central Communications and Mr. Backnicky will be providing that to me. So that may be something that we have to address sooner rather than later for the dispatching. We want to make sure we have the most qualified dispatchers as well. The main goal is hopefully with regionalization, sometimes, I know sometimes people don't think that is a great word. However, in central dispatch, I think our dispatchers are better than any other dispatchers out there. Chief Izzo and Mr. Backnicky and Sheriff definitely emphasize the need for proper training on that. Any questions on central communications?
Mr. President.
Sir.
I just want to take the opportunity to say I agree with Mr. Matus. We have the best dispatch center, bar none, in the state of Ohio. When I was a Willoughby Hills councilman and Sheriff Liam Bruno was chief deputy at the time, he came in along with then Captain Mike Warner of dispatch and frankly undersold the savings to our community. We found that we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on an annual basis in salaries. We saved millions of dollars when you consider the capital expenditures we would have had to have made over the years. And we had a faster response time, which is the most important thing. You improve safety in our community. So I have seen firsthand the dramatic value added from the Lake County Dispatch Center. We are very blessed.
Thank you, sir. Next.
The next one is the road patrol. If you look at that, last year's is lower than what it was in 2021. If you look 2023 returns, basically the 2021 numbers. Why that was, there were some chargebacks that were processed without in a timely manner. That's why. Clerk Andrews is here. I know she gracefully and proactively took a stance with the commissioners, along with the commissioners, to fund road patrol partially fund road patrol for a grant program that she did. That means, that's another reason why, if you look at the budget for the road patrol, it's slightly up as well. Because the commissioners at that time wanted some to be paid from the general fund. They saw the need for road patrol. With that, I feel that that budget suffice to cover that. And any questions that you guys have, it's a 4-year program that Clerk Andrews has provided. We did the first year for almost all the townships transfer. I'll be working with her to declare a surplus on that portion of it for the next year with that. And like I said, I want to thank Clerk Andrews for providing that resources for that. Now, in 2 years, we will have to determine what our next step is for road patrol. I know it was that the communities would put on a safety levy. Now, that's all contingent upon what the people want to provide in tax levies and so forth. But as far as 2023, that's another thing as well. Road patrol is in bargaining as well. So that may be adjusted as well, depending on the collective bargaining agreement for all the sheriff unions. Any questions on road patrol?
Very good. Next.
Next one is Sheriff Technology. This is important. They have their own, as we talked about, the need to consolidate IT services. They have their own needs. They're going through a couple different programs with their jail maintenance system, as well as their CAD stuff. If you look, they had a payout in 21, and they have changeover a little bit in staff in 2022. If you look, the 2023 budget is a little bit less than that, but that covers the current staff as well as all costs associated with Sheriff IT. Any questions on Sheriff IT?
Very good. Next.
Next one is the Sheriff Task Force. The Sheriff Task Force was previously approved by previous boards, by the previous board, I should say. They go out, they talk to people in school, etc. with that. They help narcotics on some occasions as well. If you look, the only change in that is someone changed dental coverage, so I had to bump up dental and reduce prescription. No staff number changes. If you look, you can tell by the salary line item and so forth with that. The next one is, any questions on the task force?
Seeing none, move on.
The next one is Sheriff Explorer. This is a program that the Sheriff's Office instituted last year to help try to entice people that are younger that want to partake in becoming a deputy in the future. This is all funded by donations. I work with Ian with this, which is one of their staff members over at the Sheriff's Office. And this really, in essence, is, even though it runs through the general fund, is not a cost to general fund. Some people may ask why. We worked with the prosecutor's office, specifically Dave Hackman, to set this up the right way in accordance with the ORC with that. They have approximately $4,500 in donations. This is an ongoing change that I address on a quarterly basis. If they get more donations, their appropriations go up. Once they have cash, if they don't have cash and they utilize it, next year their appropriations will go down. They're well aware of that, and they are fine. Like I said, most of this is for uniforms that they provide.
Sure.
Other expenses like liability, any minor equipment that they need. If you look, it's $4,500. It's not a significant amount, but every dollar counts when you're trying to
It's an investment.
have a sustainable budget. The next one is
Assuming there's no questions.
Oh,
Good.
sorry.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I would just say at some point, I know that the commissioners would love to hear from the Sheriff's Explorer program. Maybe we could invite them to a commissioners meeting in the not too distant future and thank them for their studies and commitment to law enforcement.
Thank you. Sure, could you want to add? Oh, you got it? Okay. All right, moving on to the coroner.
The next one is the coroner's office. If you look at that, Dr. Keep is here, I know. I'm sorry, Dr. Comer, good grief. I got Dr. Keep on my mind.
I think Dr. Comer may have stepped out.
Did he step out?
But that's okay. He briefed me on what he wanted to cover, so
All
we're
right.
good.
The real line item that changed significantly from years past is we added a forensic pathologist on that, which is Dr. Keep. Sorry, Doc Comer, for that error. in regards to that. So that should help reduce our medical. We were sending out some autopsies to Cuyahoga. We sent out a majority of our autopsies to Cuyahoga, and I know with Dr. Keep on staff, he's going to be doing a lot of autopsies in-house now. The only thing that changed with that is the life insurance with Dr. Keep. We had to add a whopping $48 to it, and I took that from hospitalization with that. I know the coroner has expressed some concern over the time of a proper morgue facility. Also, they cannot do decomposing bodies autopsies right now. That's what they would still be sending to Cuyahoga. In discussion with him, he feels the salary line items are sufficient for right now. If you look, they have gone up dramatically. The commissioners have twofold. That's some from the opioid epidemic, as well as Dr. Comar adding Dr. Keep to the staff in regards to that. Like I said, I know he's expressed to the board in the past about a morgue, the decomposing bodies, the relationship with Lake Health, etc. That is what I know. I know Commissioner Hammercheck, you said he's been briefed. I don't know if I missed anything, or is there something additional?
There is additional, if I may, regarding the mortuary services and morgue. The new Cleveland Clinic facility in Mentor, the construction of that facility, they do not have an on-site morgue. So decedents that are part of the clinic will take care of that. But any coroner cases, at this time, they would have to be transferred. The decedents would have to be transferred to the University Hospital facilities, formerly the Lake Health facilities. I'm not sure how long that's going to last. As was indicated, decomposing bodies would need to be taken care of by Cuyahoga County, but during the COVID situation, they declined to accept any of our transfers. So that poses a tremendous hardship. And the other one is the bariatric patients. Not to be overly graphic, but this needs to be said. When people are being packed in ice, I'm pretty sure their loved ones would be shocked and horrified to hear that. There is a continuing need on the part of the coroner. He has said he understands and appreciates the strains on the general fund, but we have to keep in mind that a morgue, we are the 11th most populous county in the state of Ohio, and we do not have a morgue facility for our coroner. We are utilizing hospital morgues that were designed for hospital use, not for a coroner. There are some serious safety issues associated with the way that, and I hate the term racking and stacking, but they've got these literally racked and stacked crypts that you could lose a finger, you could lose a hand manipulating people in and out and physically injure yourself. So the medical staff performing the autopsy services are at risk. We need to keep in mind previous numbers discussed on this, and this goes back about 3 years, was a $15 million hit on the general fund. So we need to have that in mind as we proceed. The day is coming that that bill is going to come due. I think I've captured everything. If I haven't, we can make it up at a later date. Mike, anything additional on the corner?
No, like I said, I know I talked to Doc and his staff, and like I said, the payroll, the only concern that he brought up is the morgue with that, and I know we've been dealing with that for a few years now with that. Any other questions by the board on the coroner's office?
Okay, now before you proceed to the next one, those who may be tuning in, we're still continuing our discussions regarding budget. Our regularly scheduled commissioner meeting will begin after this. There will be a break in the broadcast. You will need to log in to the commissioner meeting. So please continue, Mike.
Yep, the next one is the clerk of court's office, Miss Andrews. I know she has expressed one thing that I know I've had some discussion with her. It really, she did have a budget presentation as well. With her salary increasing, the professional dues and memberships went up. That has already been adjusted by the board. Also, we had to adjust Medicare and hospitalization for that. I know Ms. Andrews, like I said, has worked with the commissioners over the past. with her legal portion of her fund. Also, I know she had some concerns when she brought up her certificate of title fund about advertising and printing. That has been addressed. I told Ms. Andrews prior to this, when we met before, that it was going to be addressed. It will be addressed next week in the permanent budget. We have to pass it by April 1st. Next Thursday will be that. I don't know if Ms. Andrews has any comments or anything. I think no one's ever satisfied with their budget, but I think she was content with that. I know she had more questions on the certificate of title
Hey, we're
portion.
getting a double thumbs up. That's
better.
Take the win, and she's smiling. So take the win, Mike. Move on.
Sometimes she gives me the double middle finger, so this is way better this time. So, any questions that the board has on the legal portion of the clerk of courts?
Mr. President.
Sir.
No question. I would just take the opportunity to thank our Clerk of Courts office again for operating the Title Bureau Fund so efficiently that the surplus can be used for other county priorities. We talked about the COPS grant program in the Sheriff's Office, which has dramatically benefited our townships. We talked about the increasing need in so many other areas of county government. It's rare when folks give back, whether that be Recorder Becky Lynch or Clerk of Courts Faith Andrews, and we're grateful for that. Most recently, as Mike Matus said, our two priorities have been law enforcement and economic development, the investment in wine country that we're going to be making to continue to grow that industry, which benefits our hotels, our tourism, and really is helping to make Lake County the destination on the lake. These are really substantial contributions to Lake County's community, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with you to make those strategic investments.
Thank you, Commissioner. I did want to mention that I did go tour the gun range and with several people. The sheriff, Deputy Izzo, Jason Boyd, and very impressed. And I likely will, because there has been an ask, I'm not sure if it's going to be $350,000.
We'll take 400 or 500.
It's $1.7 million.
That's so
I will make
generous
funds
of you.
available. We're discussing it now.
You're on tape now.
Okay. How about $275,000? $275,000 for the
Try
business
again.
community.
Up,
$275,000.
We'll do the prices right. I'll tell you when you're going to fall off the cliff.
We'll talk about it later, but I am going to make funds available because I do feel that that's very, very important. It's a facility that's going to be used by bunches of folks all around Northeast Ohio. So it's impressive, and I'm going to actually take advantage of using the range once it is done myself. And I would like to check out that simulator.
Do not let them tell you to hold the target and wait for the flash.
So.
Mr. President, just
Sir.
for the benefit of those watching, when we're talking about the shooting facility, we're talking about the training and shooting facility, we're talking about the firing range that we're building for the sheriff next to the landfill that will not only be used for the training of our sheriff deputies, but will also be made available to all law enforcement agencies in Lake County. So instead of having to travel and pay a fee to use a facility somewhere else, as many have done in the past, we're going to have a state-of-the-art facility right here in Painesville Township that'll be accessible to all of our county, city, village, township, police departments, and law enforcement officers. So we're going to improve the level of training. We're going to lower cost. It's a very powerful investment in the future of safety in Lake County.
It's absolutely impressive. I can't wait to see it when it's done. So, very happy to, once again, give back to the people and, help law enforcement. Any questions? Nope. Okay.
Okay, again, for those just now tuning in for our commissioners meeting, it will resume after a break. We are currently continuing our budget discussions from 8 o'clock. We're just continuing on, so.
Yep, the next ones should relatively go pretty quick. There's a couple of different things. Common Pleas, we have Common Pleas 1, Common Pleas 4, Common Pleas 2, and Common Pleas 5. With regards to that, I work with Judge O'Donnell, Judge Condon, as well as Judge Collada on these. If you look, there's no yellow changes with the Common Pleas 1. The only thing that I would say that they have expressed some concern is if the raises are provided to the prosecutor's office, the staff attorneys, as well as the magistrates, may be paid less than the prosecutor. So that is something that I'm sure that the common pleas judges are waiting to see what happens with the final budget. Like I said, we have approximately 600,000, like I told you before. But I know that will be an ongoing discussion that we have with all the common pleas judges moving forward with that. They have expressed some concern with that. Common Police ones, they had no questions. Of course, that's subject to change if they have something that comes up, interpreter fees as well with that. Common Police 2, if you see, they have had a couple things. This is Judge O'Donnell's. They have had interpreter fees as well as medical come up, and we have addressed that for that. We do that case by case basis. That's why we don't like to put appropriations in place for contract repairs and so forth until the need is there. So that, therefore, those are the two minor changes. If you look, they were both zero. Their budget changed by $4,155. The next is Common Police 5. If you look, there's one change there with other expenses. I don't recall that. We had $1,200. We had to bump it up to $2,000. The commissioners previously approved that via resolution. The next one is Common Pleas 4. With that, I hope the Honorable David Hackman Jr. gets the judgeship for that. Oh, never mind. As everyone knows, Judge Lucci is the appellate court now. We're waiting for the appointment from the governor in regards to that. So we'll wait and see his needs. That's going to be an ongoing thing depending on who is appointed to judge with that. They had one other thing that they had to pay $95 for. If you look, that's the only change in their budget as well. Then the commissioners previously approved this via resolution. They had some outside funds. They are depleting. So we actually moved, this is a new expenditure for the general fund this year. To take that in consideration, like I said, I know our revenues are up, but also our expenditures are up. This is Common Pleas. It's under Judge Lucci and whatever the new judge will be. The Common Pleas for IT staff. That's 2 employees that run the Common Pleas General Division of the 4 Common Pleas General. I know there's other general fund or general divisions as well. The next one is something that the commissioners previously approved via resolution as well. Foreclosure, they have a magistrate as well as a staff, and that added $192,146 to the general fund, and that's based on the current staff, the current benefits that they have, etc. Any questions on the Common Pleas General Fund divisions?
Just to reiterate, Judge O'Donnell was kind enough to come join us for a budget discussion. I did speak with him just last night, just to reiterate. There are going to be, again, this is a fluid budget. We're going to need to take a hard look at the staff attorneys, the magistrates, the other staff members. That there will need to be some market adjustments for them, but also to keep in the forefront, we are looking at a $3 million records management investment on the horizon, and we need to know that that is coming. So that would be a $3 million general fund hit. So we need to, again, keep that in mind, and the judge wanted me to emphasize that. So other than that, please proceed unless there's anything further.
Any questions?
Mr. President?
Sir.
It sounds like we'll just cut Mike DeLeon's budget drastically when he becomes a judge. That should pay for everything.
That's appellate court. That's most of somebody else.
We're still required to pay some of that. We'll get
Skosh,
into that at a
just
later
skosh.
time.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions on Common Pleas? Probate, this is one that the commissioners... Oh.
Again, anyone joining us now, our regularly scheduled commission meeting will begin after the continuing of these budget discussions. There will be a break in between this. You will need to sign back in again. Sorry, Mike, I just wanted to get that for those just now tuning in.
That's fine. The probate, as the commissioners recall, they received a request from Judge Barlotta in regards to his budget. He wanted to move staff from his outside funds. Their computerization fund was depleting as well. They also have a case management system that they're currently working on. The commissioners previously signed off on adding additional funds to the probate. Basically, it equated to all-in costs of about $200,000. Why you see more highlighted with that is previously the employees were paid partially from their computerization fund. Therefore, I had to take in consideration their life insurance, their prescription, dental, etc. As well as that, when there comes salaries, as Mr. Colson pointed out, you have to change the PERS and the Medicare. Other than the $200,000 that was added, they also have, which is very rare, they have a jury. They had to have a jury case as well as a court reporter for that. So that is the $2,700. Mr. Baldy keeps me well informed when they have something forthcoming, and we'll adjust that on a case-by-case basis. Any questions on probate?
On the probate, before Judge Bartolotta left town, we did make some arrangements that we'd square that circle at a later time, that this is that later time. So this reflects those requests. So I just want to make sure that we're real clear on that.
Yes, sir.
All right.
The next couple portions of the general fund are juvenile court. As we know, unfortunately, with the passing of Judge Lawson, Lake County lost a great judge, a great person itself. I worked with Chris Cohn and Mr. Goff on their budget. Of course, with the new judge being in place, that may change their needs, their request in the future. However, when I met with Judge Lawson, Mr. Goff, and Mr. Cohn, they felt the general portion of their juvenile court was addressed by the current budget. With that, I know Judge Lawson, when COVID had, you're going to see a slight increase in probation officers as well as detention center and the upcoming ones. That is because when COVID, they basically the detention facility was relatively shut down for the most part. So she laid some people off, she termed some people, therefore with that. Any questions on the first portion of the juvenile court fund?
Please continue.
All right, moving on. This is, there was 2 packets of 133 in my sheet, so sorry. The next one is juvenile probation. I know in talking with Mr. Cohn, many times over this, they are having a hard time getting juvenile probation officers. Mr. Cohn has been keeping me informed of they are trying to recruit some juvenile probation officers, and they're hoping that is why their request was $383,000. If you look at last year's, it was $239,000. They had another person leave. This, once upon, if they do hire someone to return to, as the commissioners have requested me in the past, they do not. They always request the elected official, if they're adding new people, to come to the board first. These will be replacement of people that she has not replaced over years. If you look in 2020, it was higher. 2021, it was higher as well. Mr. Cohn and Mr. Goff, I will have an open communication with them. They'll be providing updates as well, if and when they can find a probation officer. Or 2, actually. That's their main goal, is 2 to replace the 2 that have left. Any questions on that portion?
Very good. Moving on.
The next one is the detention center. If you notice, that has changed slightly from the salaries, and that's based on the current staff. If you look at what she has, what Judge Lawson spent in prior years, it was higher than the 1.16. This returns them to not pre-COVID numbers. However, they're having a hard time finding people, just as the sheriff is, for COs and so forth. This is basically, they have their own detention center, they have their own jail over there. They had to get a replacement done on, I believe it was a washer or dryer, I can't recall, but that's why you see that highlighted, the 3,500. They had to do some changes with that. Any questions on detention center? Like I said, this is returning, this is going into the direction of pre-COVID numbers for employee staff as well as the whole department itself.
And the piece of equipment replaced was a commercial piece of equipment, so it wasn't residential,
Yep.
which is why the price is what it is.
Yep. This intake department, they had no questions concerning that right now. If you look, that's relatively the same as what it was with some bump up from last year. Child placement, we did not fund that. If juvenile has a need for that in the placement, that's a joint project with JFS. I told Mr. Cohn and Mr. Goff that the door is open for that. At the current time, there's no appropriations, but we may need to address that in the future. Any questions on intake? And like I said, just a word with the judge unfortunately passing away, there will be a judge appointed at some time, and we will have to work with that judge to see if they have the same needs as what Judge Lawson had, and foresee what he or she requests for that department.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I think when applying to the governor, the judicial candidate should explain how they're going to have cost savings in their department. I think that would help them to get the appointment.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next topic, I just want to say anyone tuning in right now for our commissioner meetings, we are continuing on with our budget discussions, which began at 8 this morning. The regularly scheduled commissioner meeting will begin after this. There will be a break. You will need to sign back in again. Please continue.
The next department is domestic relations. Previously, last year, for a portion of the year, the commissioners authorized an additional secretary for the domestic relations. That's why the change in salaries PERS Medicare as hospitalization. When we did the original calculation of the temporary budget, that person was not employed. However, they are now, so that is highlights in red. That's what they are caused by, as well as the membership dues for that department has went up about $500. So therefore, that's why that is in red as well. Any questions on domestic relations? I work with Judge Falkowski and Ms. Kraft on a regular basis as well, and they keep me informed of the needs. They also have received a grant for that. We will be creating a new fund next week for that. I have to work with the prosecutor's office. For that, we're actually creating, they got ARPA funds from the Ohio Supreme Court to relieve their caseload. Now, I have had that discussion. The grant is for 2 years. I have asked judge's staff what their plans are, and their intent is to see how it is. That may be the general fund ask in a few years as well, and that will be pretty significant as well. Any questions on domestic? The next one is jury commission. That was usually ran by Judge Lucci as well, now Judge O'Donnell. Recently, the only line item that has changed is the contract services line item. They changed jury software with that. Therefore, that's a license and so forth. Yes, it's a significant increase as compared to 21, but similar as to what it is with the cost escalation for 2022. They also, with the jury commission, they oversee the grand jury and so forth with that. That's the salary line item with that. In talking with the judges, they feel that the new jury commission is very adequate for what their needs are. And I work with Lena Wheeler, who recently came over there with this portion of the budget. So, any questions on jury commission? Next one is adult probation. That is run by Craig Berry. I work with Craig Berry and Lauren McCarthy on that. If you look at, I have not really received any inquiries concerning that. Besides the general fund payout I included yesterday with you, we may have to adjust the salary line item and take it from payroll liability. That's why we have a payroll liability fund. Moving forward, I had to change. Life insurance was approximately $10 short, so I took it, I'm sorry, $20 short, so I took it from hospitalization.
Well, you have to pass the hat. That would be bad.
Yep. Any questions on adult probation?
Pretty straightforward.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I'm just looking, bottom line number, that the budget recommendation is higher than the budget request.
Well, I base it on what the current staffing levels for hospitalization and that. You guys have not asked me to reduce the staffing levels for any department. So therefore, I have to properly fund hospitalization, prescription, dental, and so forth. They had some major changes in coverage, so that is why that is. And I know they help supplement that from their supervision fees. If there is excess in there, I know Craig has been very, very cooperative with that. Unlike other departments that feel that the budget's just exactly that, and if they have a penny, they try to spend it within 25 cents of certain budgets. Craig, if there is 10,000 left, I do not foresee Craig or his staff, and also the judges do keep adult probation because he answers to the judges. Any questions on adult probation?
Thank you, sir. Next, and just those tuning in, again, this is the continuation of the budget discussions from 8 o'clock this morning. The regularly scheduled commission meeting will begin afterwards. There will be a break. You will need to sign back in again. Thank you.
The next is Court of Appeals. We have assigned counsel. That's hard to project as well. If you look at last year, we had 43,000. The original, I do this portion of the budget, it was 30 prior to the temporary. I changed it to 35. The other expenses, we get charged a prorated amount based on population for the 11th District of Court of Appeals. I had originally 80,000. When we got the bill from Trumbull County, it was 83 and some change. So I had to bump that up 4,000. You guys previously did that. We don't have a dog in the fight. We can't really, it is what it is. Trumbull County is the home of that, and therefore they bill us. I attach that to the appropriation change that you guys previously signed off on. The next one is the public defender. If you look at that, the salary line item has changed as well. That is based on a letter that the commissioners were provided and that they agreed. Whenever there's an increase in the prosecutor, there's a revised code that says they have to be compensated adequately in comparison with that. Therefore, that is why PERS and Medicare have done. I had to add a few dollars into life insurance with that. And they also had minor equipment purchase. It was zero. There's $1,200. And they also had a contract they had to do for $4,000 for that. The good thing about the public defender is recently the state of Ohio, Governor DeWine understands the need for the public defender. And therefore, we received 90 cents on the dollar back. They want to try to get it to 100%. In my time here, it was as low as 48%. So they have definitely made strides into that. Why it's less than 100 is when people saw that at this state level and the county level, they provided raises to their public defenders. So the pot of money, as we know, does not get bigger. It just gets less and less gets allocated. So the 100% became 90%. How long that is sustainable, I'm not sure. In regards to that, whatever's decided for the prosecutor's office moving forward, I'm sure it's usually approximately half is going to be requested by the public defender with that for fair comparison. Just so the commissioners are aware of that as well. I foresee that coming.
So again, this is a fluid document.
Yep.
One thing triggers a change in another. And
yes.
These numbers were based on your good faith preparation of this document.
Yes.
Prior to this meeting.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, sir. Unless there's nothing else, continue on, sir.
The next three are municipal court. These are hard to project out for the minor expenses such as assigned counsel, jury fees, witness fees, transcript fees. Painesville, Judge Malcheski, with that, he had a jury trial, so that changed a little bit. He lets me know, him and the staff let me know on jury trials, as well as if they're running low on transcript fees, etc. With that, Judge Malcheski is great to work with. And he's been definitely an asset to since he's taken over Painesville Muni on that. Any questions on Painesville Muni? The salaries are statutory for the official, and then we're required to pay for a bailiff as well as a clerk for them, and then also if they have some fill-ins for staff attorneys. Any questions on that? Moving on, Mentor Muni, work well with them as well. Don't have a lot of communication. They reach out when they need some assigned counsel fees, foreign judges, etc. with that. That's hard to project out. It all depends on how many cases they have, etc. with that. Any questions on Mentor?
Thank you, sir. Next.
Moving on, we're almost done.
Getting close.
Getting close. Willoughby, that same thing. Judge Carnaccio, Chris Simon, who used to work in our juvenile, he's great to work with as well. Same. They're all the muni courts are hard to project out the interpreter fees, juror fees. It all depends. Like I said, I work well with Chris. He's been great to work with when he was a juvenile. He's good to work with at Willoughby as well. Any question on Willoughby?
Did Willoughby work out with the prosecutor's office? I think it was the law library, that funding issue. Did that get resolved, or is that still?
I know I talked to Miss Eccles yesterday. She reached out to me. I know she wanted to get some input for me from what the general fund, because the general fund has also been affected by that. I know Miss Eccles, Mr. Hackman are currently working on that, and I'm sure that they will provide me an update after they have more concrete. They wanted to see what I thought the estimate was that we lost. It's hard to project out with not. What I'm going to do is basically go through the last 5 years and see what our average was and provide that to Ms. Eccles and Mr. Hackman moving forward. Yeah, just so we can see approximately. You'd have to go case by case. My understanding, just when talking to Ms. Eccles and Mr. Hackman yesterday, were that they are definitely on the road to addressing that.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
The next one we did have a budget hearing on as well, which is the Board of Elections. If you recall, we've discussed our salary line item with that. That is, if you look at their budget, that is the line items that change. Were the salary line item, the PERS, and the Medicare. They stated their case. They gave a little bit more than the 2.5%. They addressed it at the budget hearing with that. So that was an approximate increase of $10,000 on an annual basis plus PERS in that. The $70 you guys just signed off on last week, there was a grant and there was air that was keyed in by one department. It was $69.30. They owe that back to the Secretary of State for that. So. Any questions? That's the only, and like I said, 3 of the red are explained just by the salary line item. The other 2 go hand in hand with that.
Thank you, sir. Next.
The next one is tax map. That goes under the engineer's office. The only thing that is has been addressed was the prescription. There was input error on that. We have adjusted that. We had $670. It's $6,700. As most departments know, sometimes there's inputting errors and we address them. So that's the only thing. Now, I did, like I said, I previously discussed, Ms. Giblock reached out and said there will be a person that is retiring from TaxMap. We will be adjusting their salary line item later when it occurs. We'll address it accordingly like we have done in the past later on in the year, and that will be coming from the payroll liability as well. That's probably going to be between $40,000 and $50,000, their estimate, depending on how much it is a gentleman, so how much he uses. The next one.
Before we move off engineers, I do want to get this into the discussion. It may be more appropriate for this to be under departmental reports or new business under the regular commissioners meeting, but the engineer's office has expressed a continuing need for roads and bridges. I will tell you on the east side of the county there are several roads and bridges that are closed. This is a true public safety hazard. I would recommend that we give due consideration to, we do have, we all know this, we do have more money coming in for interest. You can't look at that as it's a guarantee, but we can look at it as taking care of projects. The engineer's office easily could use $5 to $9 million just to get caught up on a few things and make our roads safe and passable. I don't know if the engineers want to discuss this now or wait until we get into the regular commissioners meeting, but this is a discussion that needs to be had. So if you're satisfied with my getting that plug in during this budget, great. We'll talk about it during the regular commissioners meeting.
That's fine. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, ma'am. Continue, sir.
And the very last one, this is Veteran Services. I work with Director Wormling on this. He expressed that his board, as they know, have a separate board outside the Commissioner's office. They granted a 3% raise with that versus 2.5%. With that, that is why the salary line item and the PERS and the Medicare have changed. Mr. Wormling is entitled to 1/2 of 1 mil, which equates to over $3.5 million with that. The relief allowance, if you look, it's definitely significantly lower in 2020, 21, 22 as it was in 2019. In talking with Director Wormling, he expects that to go up drastically back to the 2019 and 2018 levels with that. So he is well under his 1/2 mil limitation with that. I worked with him a lot regarding that. We worked with him to provide him emergency rental assistance program funds with our planning department, with Mary Norman, and hopefully we'll continue that. With that, that's actually helps the general fund, and it also helps us expend some emergency rental assistance program money with that. So any questions? I went over this with Mr. Wormling before. He was content with his budget as well. In concluding, like I said, you guys have the SMA revenues, you have the estimated expenditures. I'll put together the request from the auditor's office, the prosecutor office, the sheriff's soil and water. And then you guys, like I said, to not have expenditures exceeding appropriations without dipping in a payroll liability or budget stabilization fund, it's approximately $622,000. So any questions by the board, anything that they would want to further discuss with this?
The only thing I would like to add, though, regarding Veteran Services, and I'm sure my colleagues would agree, Veteran Services has continued to be a good partner. They are good stewards of the people's money, and our veterans do indeed deserve the services that our hardworking Veteran Services folks are providing. And I also want to get in there, no decisions will be made until all budget meetings are completed, this being theoretically, yes, sir. Come on up, sir.
I apologize.
No, quite all right, quite all right.
I got so focused on the current salaries when I was talking about the budget and asking for, I didn't talk about the additional staffing that we needed
I
too.
think I shoehorned that in there for you.
Okay, good.
That would be the $703,000 plus benefits?
Total.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Teamwork, that's a, hey, you know what? This was a quiz to see if I'm actually studying this stuff. Mike, did I capture that? Does that sound correct?
Correct, yes.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I would just close with this thought. Lake County taxpayers are counting on us to hold the line, to balance the budget without raising taxes, to provide the same level of strong service within that budget. And I believe that we are well positioned to accomplish just that by working together. I heard your comment about the engineer's office. There's never enough money for roads and bridges, and we're grateful for your service on NOACA as we work to bring money in. I'm certainly open to looking at additional expenditures, but we have to ensure that we have fully paid for the jail project as well as our priorities in law enforcement before we look to another large expenditure. So I think we're going to be able to see after we fund those expenses what may or may not be left over, but I wouldn't commit to another major expense until we've already got the jail in line, which we have committed to build on the recommendation of the Corrections Board, as well as making sure that we are doing our best to meet the requests of our county prosecutor's office and our sheriff.
And I thank you for that, and this is the proper venue for discussions, deliberations. I would contend that life safety is of paramount concern, and when you have roads and bridges that are not accessible and areas of our county are being isolated, it has to be addressed. With that, if there's nothing further, Mr. Boyd.
I just want to, number one, thank the commissioners for their time this morning and thank Mike and Sarah, Terry, et cetera, for all their hard work on this budget. And just want to say thanks to Mike.
Well done, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Boyd.
Hey, teamwork. All right, if there's nothing further, again, no decisions will be made until all budget meetings are completed. I believe this is the last scheduled meeting, so we will be going over a number of things, and at a formal commissioner meeting, we will be discussing in more detail.
Next Thursday, you'll have something on the agenda. We'll be writing that up later today and/or tomorrow to provide you with what I foresee. I'm hearing you guys, and then you guys can tell me what further you would like changed.
Okay, and if there's nothing further to come before this budget hearing, again, this is the budget hearing that was scheduled from 8 to 10. We have continued it until completion. There will be the regularly scheduled commissioner meeting commencing immediately hereafter. There will be a break in this transmission. You will need to sign back in again if you are watching from the outside this live stream.
One more thing,
Yes, sir.
President.
Yeah, John.
There's probably been 750,000 requests, so for that,
Understood.
sometimes you miss a zero or anything, so we just got to make sure that we stay within our budget with our parameters with that. So 750 sometimes only becomes 75.
Understood. These things it is a very fluid time in our lives. Okay, and with that note, thank you for joining